Hey there, and welcome to another Curtis Stage video tutorial. Today's tutorial is in Photoshop, and we're going to be doing a low poly art drawing, and so let's get started. So before we start in Photoshop, I wanted to kind of talk about what a low poly drawing is. You'll see a lot of this happen in 3D design for games, mostly games, but it could be also for animations. It's a really cool effect. The computer is drawing geometry is what's happening. So in a 3D program like Blender or Maya, doing poly drawings is pretty easy. But we're going to do it in Photoshop. You could also do this in Illustrator. We're going to do it in Photoshop, so that's going to be kind of the best way for us to do it in this class. In another class, if you were taking an Illustrator class, you would do this probably in Illustrator. You could do the same thing, just would come at it a different way. I actually don't mind doing it in Photoshop because there's a lot of effects you can apply at the end. Now let's talk a little bit about what a polygon is. So polygon, something like this, straight sides, there's no curves, although sometimes in this art you will see curves. But if you want to do a true low poly art piece, then you're not going to have any curves in it. And then of course it has to be closed paths or closed shapes. So that's what it is. And one of our students made this Frida Kahlo one, so you could do portraits in this mode. This person spent a lot of hours creating this, so you could do something like that. You can see where you could do portraits. This is not by one of my students. This is an artist that did this. And then, we're going to create something that's like an animal, using an animal. So this is the best way to go about this for this tutorial is to find an image that has the animal looking straight on at you. That's going to be the best way. Now you could do a low poly drawing where you don't have a perfectly symmetrical animal. Clearly this Jack Nicholson image is not symmetrical. It's going to take you a little longer time to do it because you got to do the whole thing. We're going to pick one that's kind of straight on so we can mirror one half. We don't have to do as much work. All right, so let's get started in Photoshop. I have this fox image. I have this available to you in Canvas and in YouTube. You'll be able to download, and we're going to use this fox image. You'll notice it's pretty symmetrical already. We're going to even make it more symmetrical. So the very first step is to have this fox on its own layer, clearly, background layer, nothing happening on that. We're going to separate the fox from the background. We're just going to do its head. We're not going to do its body. So what I want to do is I want to make a selection around the fox. I'm going to zoom out. So this can be a really simple selection using your polygon lasso tool. So I'm going to go to the polygon lasso tool and just kind of go around pretty quickly, creating this selection of the fox. I'm going to kind of cut off its back a little bit. Kind of go up here. It doesn't matter if I'm getting all of the ears in. It's fine. So you're just going to kind of go all the way around. And just clicking and making points. Going to connect back up with the start. Now what I want to do is I want to inverse this because I want to delete the background. So I'm going to go to Select, Inverse, or Shift Command I or Shift Control I. You'll see I've got marching ants. Not selecting the fox's head, but actually selecting the background. I'm going to hit delete on my background. So now I have an actual transparent layer. You can leave this white background on. Command D, deselect, that's fine. Now what I want to do is I want to split this in half. I want to just focus on one half. So I'm going to go to my rectangular marquee tool. I'm going to go right down the center of this. If you don't get exactly on the center, draw it and then nudge it over with your arrow key left or right to get it on center. I want to get it as close to the center as possible. And when I do that, then I'm going to hit delete and I've got one side. Command D, deselect. I'm not going to make the duplicate side just yet. I'm going to just work with this side only. Then we'll, at the end, duplicate this side and do some other tricks. Okay. So what I want to do now is I want to actually start making the polygons. This is a little time consuming. We're going to make these fairly big, but you can get super detailed and spend a lot of time on this. But I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to start I guess it doesn't really matter where you start. I'm going to start at the nose, and then what I'll do is I'll make a few of these so you understand the process, and then I'm going to speed through it so it'll kind of speed it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my polygonal lasso tool. I'm going to start with the nose. Remember, the idea is that you're doing angles here. So I'm going to start with the bottom of the nose, kind of go like this and down. Great. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to filter, blur, and then I'm going to go to average. It's going to blur the average color there. Now that is my last, there's my keyboard shortcut. This is the last filter I used. So what's great is when I do this from here on out, all I have to do is that keyboard shortcut. So Option Command F on a Mac, Option Control, or excuse me, Control Command F on a Mac, right? And Control, then I guess it's Option F. So just look when you're on a PC, look and see what the keyboard shortcut is on there. Okay, because you're going to need to use that. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. So now I'm going to deselect this and I'm going to make the next one. You want to zoom in on this and get really close in. So watch how I do this one. I'm going to start here. And I'm not making separate layers for this. Go all the way across. I want to make sure there's no gaps in between. And then I can just go up here, average, right? Fill that in, Command D, deselect. Okay, I'm going to go through let me do a couple more of these. So I'm going to kind of get this bottom area down here. Okay, so then I could just do the keyboard shortcut again. There it is right there. So Control, Command F on a Mac. And I can just do that on every one of these, Command D, deselect. And so now I'm going to go through and start getting these areas. Now the goal is that I want to kind of make shapes that make sense. So, you know, when I'm building up this nose here, I don't need every little piece of this nose. I probably want to do something like this. I probably want to go like this, and then up here, and up here, and then across here. So I get one big long nose piece there. And then I want to make sure that I'm overlapping down here. If you get a little bit of that gray, it doesn't matter because the average isn't gonna, that gray won't affect the average. And then, right, keyboard shortcut fills that, Command D, deselect. Probably could use a little more detail in that, but we get the idea here. So now I'm gonna go in here and kind of start getting this area down in here. So on this one, I may get a little bit more detail. I may go this, because this little dark area. Define the nose, side of the nose. And again, overlapping is fine. Okay. Control Command F on a Mac. Command D, deselect. Great. And then go across here. So it's time consuming. I will speed through this process here now, so you're going to kind of see me go through all this, and you get the hang of it, and then we'll kind of catch back up when I get the whole fox filled in. So stick with me here. You're going to see some speed art going on. Okay, so there we have it. We now have the fox. It takes a little time, right? So now we have the fox polygonal on one side. So now let's make a duplicate copy. I'm going to go to my move tool. I'm going to duplicate this, Command J or Control J on your PC. So I've got this guy. Now I want to flip it. So I'm going to go to Edit, Transform. I'm going to flip horizontal. And now I can put these two pieces together. So we got something like that. You don't want any gaps there. And if you had any little gaps in your polygon drawing, you'll want to kind of go through I was going quick, but you want to go through pretty tightly and get those out of there. Now we've got these two together. This is great. You can kind of, you want to get them lined up the best you can. So let's see. So just before, I don't want any gap. So maybe something like right there. Perfect. Now I want to merge these two layers. So I select both of them. I'm going to go up to Layer, Merge Layers, or Command or Control E. And now I've got my animal on one layer, right? Very nice. And I can size it down, size it up, whatever I want to do. So I can make it a little bit smaller. Oh, I want to cut off that bottom off there with my rectangular marquee tool. Move this down a little bit. Drew the marquee tool, and I'll just delete that. Command D, deselect. Now I can put a background in here. I'm going to make a new layer, drag it below the fox layer, and this is what I'll do, maybe a gradient background. So I'll go over here to my toolbar, grab the gradient tool, and make a cool gradient. There's already some in here, so I could probably pick something that's in the, kind of orange range, something like this. That. Draw a gradient from top to bottom. I've got that going. Now, I can go back up here and I can do some color correction on this, which makes it look really cool. So I'm going on the very bottom and I can go into Vibrance. So I can go to that one. It's a layer that's an adjustment layer over the top of this, but I want to clip it to the fox. So I'm going to hold down Option or Alt in between those so that it's clipping mask down in there. So whatever I do in Vibrance is only going to affect the fox and obviously not my background. Now I can go to Vibrance here and I can adjust, right? And bring that Vibrance up, bring the saturation up if I want to, which is kind of cool. Just because those colors weren't existing in the photo, but I want it to look more graphic. And I love how where that was highlighted or where the shadows were, those become blue now. Really, really cool. So that's an adjustment layer that I like to put on there. You can fool around with some other ones as well. You could say, ooh, I'd like to do a hue saturation. Again, you'll want to clip it to the fox layer only. So I'm going to hold down Option or Alt, and then I can go in here and I can really adjust this and kind of fool around with different color schemes for the fox, right? So I can really saturate it. It's completely up to you. I don't want to really make it brighter, I don't think. So I'm going to take the lightness out, but you're adding tint to it if you do that. And you could completely change the color of your animal, which is pretty sweet. So there's that. I'm going to get rid of that, but I just want to show you can kind of go in and do that sort of thing. Really like my vibrance here on this. So one last thing you could do is you could add noise to this layer, which is kind of a cool thing. So if I go up to Filter, I go to noise and add noise. And then I want to go to monochromatic, so it stays in that color scheme. And then I'll bring it down, not too much, but I'll bring it down. And it just gives it a little texture, which is kind of cool. So bring it down to, I don't know, 4% or whatever. And you could do this noise on an adjustment layer above, or on a blank layer above everything, and then blend mode it. So you could do that. You could put it right on the object, of course, which is a little destructive. So let me cancel that. If I wanted to put it on a layer above this, I would do a color fill layer on this. So let's see. I'll go to edit, fill. I'm going to maybe fill, pick a color that's in here. So I'm going to go to color, and I'll pick something light. I'll pick this orange. So I've got that. Very nice. Oops. Don't want it to be, I don't want it to be a clipping. Well, okay. So I can put that in there. So let me edit, fill, click it. Okay. It's a clipping mask, but I'm going to put it above this and take the clipping mask off by holding Option or Alt click. Okay. So it's above that. It's covering everything over. And then I can go to the noise that I was in. So I can go to noise, add noise. All right, there's dust and scratches too. I want it monochrome. Okay, you can decide how much noise you want. So something like that. Now, if you make this a smart layer first, you can go back and edit all this stuff. If you don't, whatever you got here, you better like, right? So I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to make this into a smart layer. So I'm going to go to layer and then smart objects, convert to smart object. So now when I add this filter, it'll actually be a smart filter. It's kind of a newish feature in the Creative Cloud. So I'm going to go to noise, add noise, and again, monochromatic. Well, you can see what, Gaussian. I'm going to go uniform on this. I'll make it less. I'm going to click OK. And see how it's a smart filter now. So that if I don't like it, I can go back and redo it. Now I can go into my blend modes and get even a cooler look. So if I go to my knockout zone down here, I'm knocking out all the lights in that. Kind of dig this one in darker color where it's only going in the other direction. I could go this way, so you can get a really cool effect that way. I can go to overlay. It's going to be the 50%, right? So darken to darker color, of course, is a knockout of lights. Lighten to lighter color is a knockout of darks, and then overlay to hard mix is a knockout of 50% gray. So you can fool around in here and see what effect you like. Vivid light's kind of cool, right? Difference is cool, is right. When we start getting these blend modes, I kind of like soft light on this. And again, if I want to double click my filter here, I can go and add my filter and go back in and go and adjust it and say, I want more or I want less. Completely up to you. So I always suggest converting your layers that you have with nothing in them into smart objects so that you can have smart filters on them. So I like a little bit of texture on it. You don't see that very often, but sometimes that adds a little cool effect to it. You can, do some other things as well with this, but I think you guys get the idea. I've seen some people now take this and then draw back into it and create some cool lines effects. I've seen people take this and now put it in Illustrator and do a vector over the top of this. So there's all kinds of great things you can do with this low poly as a way to really kind of kickstart some drawings. You could do this low poly effect to text, but you kind of have to have multicolored text going, and you'd have to do it kind of a different way. You'd probably have to make it with existing gradients. So you'd have to draw each polygon and add a gradient to it. I like doing it this way because it's fairly fast compared to that, although it takes a little while. But it looks really cool. It's a great, fun, easy thing to do in Photoshop. And this might be something cool that you could add into your rock posters when you're doing them or any of your projects in our class. All right, this has been another Curtis Stage tutorial. We'll talk to you soon.